Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for both registering and coming along to our webinar today. I'd like to begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which I'm speaking to you from. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands from which each of our online attendees are living and working from, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I wish to also extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people with us here today. By way of introduction, my name's Richard Wilson. I'm the Business Development Manager for DatacomIT. And joining me also from DatacomIT is Christine Centofanti, who's our Marketing Manager, who's been responsible for the setup and coordination of today's event. Also joining us from DatacomIT is Jess McDonald-Norman. Jess is DatacomIT's Archive and Collection Management Specialist, and Jess today will be providing us with an introductory overview of Recollect and just showing you a brief introduction to the solution and what its core features are. But our special guest today, and welcome to Michael Smith. Michael is the Manager Information Services at the City of Sydney Archives. And Michael today will be giving you a bit of an overview of how they've deployed Recollect and their use of the system and how that's benefited the institution. Now, before I hand over to Jess, I guess just for those people who aren't familiar with who DatacomIT and or Recollect are, just as a bit of a brief introduction, DatacomIT are the Australian sales and implementation partner for Recollect. And our history is in, record management, dating back over 40 odd years. DatacomIT, commenced its operation originally in the production of microfilm and microfiche as a medium to archive records. But of course, in the more modern era, we've become a very specialised provider of digitisation services. So we provide a range of specialist digitisation services for all types of institutions, for microfilm, microfiche, bound volumes. And as well as providing digitisation services, we also have a suite of digitisation equipment and, of course, solutions, of which Recollect is one of them. The Recollect solution itself was developed by a company in New Zealand known as New Zealand Micrographics, a company not too dissimilar to DatacomIT, who provides digitisation services. And the product was born out of a need of their clients who were looking for a solution to be able to host that content online and provide an engagement or a discovery and access and engagement platform for that collection. And so that's where the product was born. But due to, its success, both in New Zealand and its expansion here into Australia, Recollect became a product in its own right, a fully individual company as a software as a service company, providing Recollect as actually that software. That happened in 2019, and that's the same time in which DatacomIT came on board as the Australian partner and implementation for Recollect. Now, before I do again hand over to Jess, just a little bit of housekeeping. During today's presentation, both from Jess and or from Michael, if anyone does have a question, we encourage you to use the chat in today's webinar. You'll see that in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you think of a question, please enter that into the chat at the time that it comes to mind. And once both Jess and Michael have finished their presentation today, we'll circle back to that and read through those questions. So I guess thank you for allowing me to provide you with that introduction to Recollect, and I will now hand you over to Jess McDonald-Norman for that introductory overview of Recollect.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. You should be able to see my slides.
Okay, that's all good.
So hi, my name is Jess McDonald-Norman. I live and work on the Gadigal land of the Eora Nation in Sydney, Australia. And as Richard said, Archives and Collections Management Specialist for DatacomIT. So I'm involved in all the implementations of Recollect in Australia. So Recollect. It's whole collection management. It's online combined digital asset and collection management system. You can store both your digital assets as well as records for physical and non-digital records together to be managed cohesively. Recollect's built on these principles you can see on my slide. It provides a way for users to discover items and explore connections within your collection, guided by a linked data model. It provides easy access to users, requiring only an internet connection and a browser. Users can engage using a range of interactive features directly in their browser, such as tagging, suggesting edits, and even submitting their own material, streamlining the transfer process for any collecting archive. Recollect allows you to manage assets and records in one system, facilitating accession, arrangement, and description, and allowing for that cohesive management of your collections. Recollect will also preserve your assets by validating assets on ingest and automatically creating access copies so your archival master remains untouched. So some of the basics. Recollect is a software as a service. It is hosted by Amazon Web Services. The data will be stored in an AWS server in your country. It has unlimited storage capacity. You start with 500 gigabytes as the entry point, but really the cloud's the limit, as it were. There is no limit on the number of users, and you can have granular role-based access privileges to allow users to edit, manage content, upload material, and do all of the administration of the database. Recollect also has Trove integration, as well as OAI PMH capability for metadata harvesting if you would like your Recollect site harvested into another, perhaps into an OPAC. Recollect sites are customized to suit your organization's branding and to meet the needs of your users. There is a general Recollect layout with the same features. So you'll notice that as you look through any Recollect sites, we've got the common left navigation, carousel image. I'll go into some of these in a more detail in a moment. But this is great that if any of your users are familiar with Recollect, if you've already used a Recollect site, you'll be able to pick up using another site with ease. If we jump into now Wellington City Council Archives Online. So they've got quite clean branding here, just red, white, and black. This image you see across the top, the carousel, this is a way you can showcase material, and you can also update it and keep it fresh. It can animate through or change on refresh. If I just click this image as well as being a header image that really draws people in, they do then get to click through, see the entire image, and see that contextual metadata in the same place. I'll just head home. Coming down, we have the search bar, quite a common feature these days across sites. It's usually what users are looking for. And coming down here, these are examples of Recollect widgets. These aren't all of them, but this is just some here. These top ones are ways for you to showcase parts of your collection, either curate what you want to display to users, or to help guide users to the material they're looking for. From here, clicking on one of these, we're taken into what is called an information page, and this is where all the metadata that you need for whatever type of entity this is can be here. So we've got a bit of a description history of this park, and coming down on this site, this page, you can see these are items associated with that reserve. I also have the Google Maps plugin here that shows me exactly where that reserve is in relation to Wellington. Okay. I'm going to go back to the home page, and coming down past that, we're now looking at, on the left-hand side is the tag cloud. Now this isn't maybe as popular as it once was, but it is a really good example of one type of Recollect widget that builds on your metadata. Whatever metadata you have, you can customize it to show those as entry points, whether it's by the division, department, or collection. Your metadata can be used to create visual representations of your collection and entry points for your users. On the right-hand side here, we have the Google Maps API, where it's overlaying georeference data from items in the collection straight onto the map. So users can come in here and browse through and see items exactly where they're pinpointed. Not loading right now. But yes, once it loads, you can click through and go to an item. Okay, I'll come back to that. When you are viewing items in Recollect, you're using the Universal Viewer. This allows any supported formats to be displayed natively in the browser, including images, PDFs, audio, video, and 3D objects. Users can engage with the material directly. They can tag images, identifying individuals in a class photo, for example. They can caption audio or visual content, and they can pin drop pins, geopins on each item to have even more georeference metadata, integrating it with Google Maps. So let's look at some individual items. I know if you're getting things digitized, you're going to want them at a very high resolution. And then there is a bit of an issue of how do you actually share that with your users. So if we jump over, now I'm going to look at New Zealand heritage maps. So here we have this image of a map here. We've got the metadata on the right-hand side, and again, a geolocation, so you can actually locate what this map is of with a modern satellite. When I zoom in here, you might not really be able to see on a shared screen, but you can read some. It's not so clear, but it has begun flashing this zoom to 100. And clicking this, I am now given a window where I can zoom in to the full resolution. I can see wear and tear, a little bit of repairs and corrections in incredible detail. And because this loads incrementally, the method of how you're viewing this prevents any concerns with IP about sharing those high resolution images. The only version that your users will be able to get is this display. The only version your users will be able to download, if you want them to, can just be the display version, but yet they can still view that full-size webmaster made of your archival master. Heading over now to the University of New South Wales. Here's a book from their rare book collection. You should be recognizing some common features by now. Got all that metadata on the right-hand side describing what this is about, the subject, all of those metadata fields. Along the bottom is each page of the book, so I can jump through to where I want to go. But what I wanted to show you today is how the system handles full text indexing and OCR. So if I click here onto Show Text and Transcription, I am now shown a window where this is Recollect's automatic OCR has pulled out this text from the rare book, and this is now full text searchable. So that is automatic on ingest. Coming over now to show you transcription, we're going to look at what if a document is handwritten. So this is currently, unfortunately, a bit beyond what OCR can do. But if you do come into this show text and transcription, here you can see that the OCR hasn't picked up anything. It is struggling to read the cursive. But if I come over to transcription here, I already made a start on this, but this is where your users, whether they're staff or volunteers maybe, can come in and transcribe looking directly at the image as you go, and then save here. The great thing about this is separate to your metadata. So if you want to control who's going to be transcribing it, you've just got maybe volunteers to transcribe, you're going to crowdsource, you can keep that separate and that they're not going to get any control over the metadata itself if you don't want them to. Okay. So Recollect's collection management system handles digital and non-digital records, physical collections, and non-collection material all together in one system. The City of Sydney use Recollect to manage physical files, so they've got their descriptive and administrative metadata in there, but no asset. We'll hopefully hear a bit more about that from Michael next. The University of Wollongong, they use Recollect to also store collection guides. So that non-collection material, any finding aids, that can be on Recollect right alongside the collection material, directly linked, helping your users understand, get that context and find their way through your collections. Morton Bay is an example of an institution that has all their microform itemized on Recollect, but they don't actually have the individual assets available. So if we just jump over now to Morton Bay, you can see here's the item level description. But while the title and metadata is searchable, they don't have the asset online. It's not digitized here, but you can manage this alongside any other audio visual that you have available. It can be managed cohesively together. A very fun thing Recollect can do is the 3D viewer. So this again, if you have this universal viewer again, if you have a 3D scan of your object, you can come in here. You've got the metadata to give the context and the relationships of this item, but jumping over to view 3D model, this is how I can then view that 3D object. I can move this around, see the colors and textures, and that's really great for for fragile materials. If you do get them 3D scanned, this is a way for users to still engage with that without any risk to the original. Okay, so everything I've been talking about so far falls into these two core kinds of item types: an asset type that displays the digital file natively in your browser, and information items. They are like context hubs linking context entities with other context entities, with their provenance, and with items. There's some examples here of what's an asset and what's an information. And that's just to get you thinking about how customizable this could be, because you have complete control over creating and customizing unlimited new item types to suit your collections. Whatever you need, if you need to manage something else on top of this, maybe boxes, that can be built and customized to what you need and linked to any of the other items. Here's a brief glance under the hood of what the back end of an item type template looks like. So this is the metadata structure. You can see on the left-hand side is how it looks for administrators, and on the right-hand side is how it's going to display for users. So each field has its own settings. Each field is controlled. Visibility is controlled by a field-by-field basis, and you can easily rearrange them. This is to show how customizable it can be and how much granular control you have over it. When you start with the implementation, getting your own Recollect site, it is completely empty. Through the implementation process, we develop this structure with you. We talk about your collection, have a look at your data, and build out these item types to suit your needs. Recollect's linked data model means that you're tailoring your item fields to make the connections you need and to document those relationships. So for example, the link you might want to make between a photograph to the photographer, or between a photograph and the place that it was taken, all of those relationships can be made in Recollect. You can make as many as you need to describe as many as the relationships as necessary in your collection. Recollect, it's also great, has automatic reciprocal linking, meaning making a link one way between the photograph and the photographer makes a reciprocal link back. So no matter what what rabbit hole they go down, they will always be able to find their way out because it always provides that context. When it comes to special collections, these information items are really great that you can have the context, you can have whatever metadata you need. For example, this you're seeing is about a historical society. They have information about that historical society, but then it links to all the material donated or associated with that historical society, so you don't lose that connection. And also you can browse that provenance or that special collection in one go. Information items are also great for storytelling. Example here from Shellharbour City Museum, they have family items in their collection. So it's not necessarily collection material, but they put together a biography. They've got the family tree, and then it's linked to all the objects owned by that family, photographs of that family, all together in one spot. And all those links are made automatically when those individual photographs tag that family. You can also manage any administrative metadata in Recollect, so links to series or collections, or even to an external database if you have another site that has more documentation about that creator, for example. You can generate new unique identifiers for every item, but you can also maintain your legacy identifiers, meaning any identifying syntax you have now, Recollect can carry that on. So you no longer have to switch between having 5 legacy identifiers that have stuck around over the years. You can continue with the same numbering system. You can add in things, fields for formats, for conservation notes, physical descriptions, or for locations such as a shelf, box, or room, and those movements all in the same record. Each of these has granular control over privacy. So you may want your users to know which building something is being kept in, but you can keep it that the shelf and box number is only for staff. Something that is really excellent for managing archives is the reporting tool in Recollect. So it has really strong logic conditions that allow you to perform checks on your collection for checking missing values or to manage items that meet that specific criteria. My first example on this slide, you can see the characteristics format doesn't exist is the condition. So it's going to show results where there is nothing entered in the format. So if you do want everything to have its format included, you can use the reporting to check what actually has been missed. And in the second example there, you can also do a starts with condition, for example. So if you are only wanting to manage one section of a series, you can limit it to just that starting phrase. So there is a whole range of options what you can manage with reporting. Recollect timelines are a way to show that connection between your collection material or the history of your organization or local area. So here's 2 examples. I'll just jump in to switch. So we've got some of the children's fashions over the years. So they have used this describing the fashions, but it's linking straight through to collection material. So it really anchors the context of what's going on, what's this larger story with your collection. You can click through here and browse through the timeline there. Recollect also has strong community engagement tools, and all of these can be moderated contributions. This allows communities to add their knowledge to your collection by submitting recollections, adding their story to individual items. You can also transcribe documents, as we saw earlier. Users can also upload items. So your community might have material that is of interest to you. They can directly upload it onto the site. And again, that can be moderated before it goes live. You can also allow edits from the community so that they can suggest any changes if perhaps a date is wrong or you're missing an identifier. That can be contributed by your community. And finally, tagging the content of images as well as capturing audio-visual material. I think this is a really great visual. If I'm just jumping back over here. So here we're looking at Upper Hutt City Library Heritage Collections. They have those image tags there on the people that have been identified. So that's a really great visual sign to users that if you go, oh, I think that's my granddad, you can tag that image and share your knowledge with the community. So Recollect is a comprehensive digital asset and collection management system that manages your digital and physical collections cohesively. It has fully configurable metadata templates, which will underpin your current and expand to meet your future needs. It's flexible and scalable, adjusting as your collection grows with strong community engagement tools. The implementation process works with DatacomIT, myself, and Roger Mills. We'll work with clients to design and implement the software to meet their expectations. So you don't have to worry any step of the way. We're going to be there with you. If you think of any questions after, if you don't have time to put them in the chat now, that is my email address there, and feel free to send me any questions. But that is the end of my part. I'll throw it back over to Richard.
Thanks very much, Jess. And we'll now, I guess, go straight on. We have got some questions there, but we will come back to those at the end, and we'll jump straight in and have a presentation from Michael.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks, Jess. Now let me just switch over to my presentation. So it won't be death by PowerPoint. So what I'll aim to do is just give you a quick background on our archives and our use of Recollect, and then I'll jump straight into our instance of the system. Can you all see my screen now, the presentation? Yep. Okay, so City of Sydney Archives is an archive of council business, but it is also a collecting archive for our local government area. So our collection dates back to 1842 when the City of Sydney Council was established. The archives itself was established back in the mid-70s. So far, we have over 1 million items catalogued, and that's not the entirety of our collection by any means. So as with every archives, we've got an enormous backlog. We have digitised about 490,000 items, so we're getting close to half of the items catalogued have been digitised, and most of those are available to the public, but we actually do hold some things back just so they don't swamp the user. So it's less for sensitivity reasons, more for practicality reasons. We've got about 12,500 shelf meters of archives, which we store off-site. We have the archives team, which is a team of 6, and then we also have a team of about 35 volunteers who do most of our item level descriptions. So that's how you get over 1 million items catalogued, is you have an outstanding volunteer workforce. We have a reading room on site for people to come and inspect items, but we also, during COVID, implemented a virtual reading room, which I'll talk about later. And at the moment, we're dealing with about 3,500 to 4,000 information requests a year that we respond to. That was much higher before we went live with our system. So a little bit about our project. So our project to implement Recollect, the project name was Campus, City Archives Management and Public Access System. You've got to have a good acronym. We were merging 13 systems into one. So we had an enormous job of data cleanup, and we still have some outstanding data cleanup that we need to do. So we got as much as done as we could during the project, but we know we've got a lot more to do as well. So we were using BOS and Archives Investigator, which was a system that was developed jointly by the State Archives and ourselves back in the late 90s. And there'd been no development work done on that since. So more than 20 years without any development. So that was unsupported. Our photo database was unsupported, and several of our other systems were bespoke systems that were also not supported. We were facing increasing demand for information access requests. So prior to going live with Recollect, about 5,500 to 6,000 requests a year. So you can see that's already dropped down to 3,500 to 4,000. So that's been really good to see as an outcome of pushing more material out so people can self-serve. And we went live with Recollect in February 2020, so just a few weeks before COVID lockdown. So it was very, very timely for us. So now we get around 15,000 users a month and about 120,000 page views. So significant increase in what we have, what we saw prior to implementing Recollect. There's a lot more information that we're making publicly available through the system. Information access requests have dropped, as I mentioned. We're getting really, really positive feedback. You know, when you implement any new public-facing system, you expect a certain amount of pushback, and I think we've had something like 6 complaints in the 3 years since we went live, and some of those, and most of those were at the very beginning, where they said things like, "Well, I don't know where to find things because I used to find them in photo pics." So really 6 out of 15,000 users a month is not bad at all. And we've actually won a number of awards. So we won or placed or we're finalists in 12 awards, including the Manda Jones and the AIIA Public Sector Solution of the Year for New South Wales. So that was very exciting. Some of the things we've been working on recently. So we're looking at some data visualization opportunities. So we've got two sources for this, which we think are going to be really a lot of fun. So we've got Sans Directory, which is like a postal directory for mostly late 19th, early 20th century. And at the moment, we're capturing the data every 10 years, which is because there's a lot of data in it. But we're actually pulling this data into as structured data. Assessment books, we've done the same. So they've been transcribed into spreadsheets quite some years ago. So we've merged all of those together, starting to normalize that data as much as we can. And that's about 500,000 rows of data. And you can get things like, and this is all over time. So assessment books also went over a good 40, 50-year period. You can actually get, what sort of buildings were in particular locations, what sort of businesses were run from those buildings, how many floors they were, whether it was a brick building or a weatherboard. So you can actually start to build up a picture based on data of what the city looked like over that period of time and how it developed. Put that together with the Sans directory, then you can look at what sort of professions people had and a whole range of other things as well. So we're really excited to see that. Early days yet, but we think it's going to really take off. We've recently been working on the identification of records of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and communities, and we've created a collection tile on our homepage for that. We've been doing a lot of work, particularly because of World Pride was in Sydney this year, so the LGBTIQA plus projects. So 2 main series there we've been working on, and we contributed to the Liberate exhibition that was at our Customs House building in the city as well. So a lot of work being done there in those particular communities. Previously, we had an exhibition on developing Sydney, capturing change, based on our glass negative collection, or one of our glass negative collections. And we had things like a virtual tour of the exhibition, because unfortunately this went live during COVID as well, so, or just before COVID. So I think, again, it was up for a couple of weeks and then COVID hit, and thankfully we'd already arranged a virtual tour and we were able to load it all into Recollect and provide access to the items as well. We actually, just to talk quickly about that photo, we actually engaged a photographer to take photos around Sydney at the height of COVID lockdowns. So some really amazing images they've captured, including a row of face masks on a Hills hoist. I mean, how Australian can you get? We've worked on things like these, a collection management policy. So these are all new things that we started tackling as part of the project to roll out Recollect. Collection management policy, because as your profile increases, then the number of offers of donations increase. And you want to be able to say, well, this is what we do collect and this is what we don't collect. And we're better able to say, sorry, thank you, but sorry, we won't accept a donation this time. New access directions. So access directions under New South Wales State Government identify at what period you will release certain items to the public. So the default at the moment in New South Wales is 30 years, but it's about to become 20 at the end of the year. But we have some of our series are closed longer than that. And so for that, we use access directions. And all of that's loaded into Recollect as well, so we can relate the closure period to the items. We did a lot of work on process innovations and new procedures. We have a staff development program. We have an active disposal strategy in the organisation as well that includes not just destruction but migration to the archives from other systems. We have a staff engagement strategy and also a community engagement strategy. And that's all I wanted to say in terms of the overview, because I think that the important thing is to jump into the our site and give you a bit of a view of what that looks like. So this is our Recollect site. When we were going through the project, or actually just before the project, we with our history team, we did a history audience engagement survey, and they identified, the contractors, consultants identified 3 levels of user for the archives, which are skimmers, delvers, and deep divers. So what we decided we wanted to do is to focus on making sure that we actually hit all of those 3 areas. So there's got to be something that engages skimmers. Skimmers are the ones that just go in, might look at one thing, and that's it. And the chances are they probably get to it by a Google search. And that's fine. Then there's the delvers, who are a little bit more focused on their research, but there's probably just one thing they're after. So they'll go in, they'll do some searching, find what they're looking for, and go away happy, hopefully. And then there's the deep divers, and those are the ones that are going to be spending weeks engaged with our collection, probably coming into our reading room, needing some interaction with our archives team and so on. So we tried to design our site for those 3 types of user. So you've got the simple search on the home page, and if you're ever trying out an archive site and you don't know what to search on horse. You will always get a response for horse. So there's a simple search. We've got browsing by collection. So if you know nothing about our archives, you can go to villages and suburbs, for example, and you can say, all right, I just want to find out a little bit more about, we'll go Newtown. And this is, and so this is some of the functionality that Jess was talking about. And we built a whole lot of business rules around this sort of thing to say, we've got a maximum number of words to include in a collection description. We've got some standard links that we might provide down the right-hand side. We want to get a good coverage of not just photos, but also some items, some books and journals. So we do have a reference collection that is we've loaded into our Recollect. Relationship to other collections, which can be sub-collections. We've got maps. We've got other entire series that are related to Newtown, and we've got a video down there as well. So that's what we're trying to get with our collections, is to get that balance. But somebody can access into that without any real need to know what we've got. They just know, hey, I live in Newtown and I want to know more about what you've got that might be of interest. Other business rules that we created were things like our items. We've established a 100 character limit on item titles, and what that means is it displays really nicely there. It doesn't run off the edge. So so some of those things we kind of worked out as we went along. Let's go back home again. We've got an interactive map. So that survey, we also did a deep dive into those information and access requests we're getting, the 5,500 to 6,000. About 80% are building related or location related. So having geolocation was really critical for us. So we're now at the point we've geolocated, I think it's about 90 to 100,000 items. So we're getting towards 10% of our collection has been geolocated, but we've still got a long way to go. And again, that's largely due to the volunteer work doing that for us. Then we've also got things like development and building records. So again, very large percentage of those information access requests are asking for development and building records. And if I just click on that, so to get it loading, what that allows you to do is our users can search just within development and building records. So we've flagged all of the records that we think are related to development and building, and then our users can go into that collection and they can just search, for example, Piedmont, and away it goes. And it's just going to bring up records that have Piedmont in the metadata. And let's just do, yep, it's going to prompt me. So we can do the simple search. And what you'll see is, if we just go to item type and go to photograph, photograph, we've looked at the sort of metadata that's really useful from what we know of our users in terms of filtering down to the sort of items they want, even to things like image aspects, so portrait and landscape, in relation to these things. And we know that because we actually get very specific requests for information that say, hey, I'm really looking for a portrait photograph of the Harbour Bridge, and we say, oh, okay, yeah, we've got one of those during the dust storm in 2009, because we can do that kind of filtering, and we can filter to say, do we want colour? I mean, we've only got colour of the dust storm, but if we had grayscale as well, that would have been an option. And we can filter to whether they're digitized or not as well. So that kind of functionality is really critical for us. And then we also looked at things like how to make our collection accessible and consistent with other collections around the world. So looking at different metadata standards. So if I just jump into edit this photo of Paddy's Markets, you've got things like format is quite an extensive list. So we're trying to use controlled lists as much as we can. We've got things like the language, which for most photos is going to be no linguistic content, but this is based on the international standard for representing languages. We've got, what else we got? You've got color depth there. We've got dimensions. We've got to look up for all the standard kind of dimensions. Image aspect can be square, portrait or landscape, and so on. So we're trying to get that consistency in our metadata whenever we can. And then we've got a range of other collections. I won't go into them in great detail. We've also been working, as we've been working on the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander content, we're looking at things like cultural sensitivity statements and those sorts of things. So if you go into some of these, you'll actually find there's a cultural sensitivity notice here that's included in the metadata for some of those items, despite the fact in this case it's Ray Martin. Okay. We also worked to ensure that functionality we had previously wasn't lost. So Historical Atlas is a good example where we previously had geotagged maps that appear like this per series. I can then zoom in and say, yeah, I want to have a look at Martin Place in 1880, and the map for that period comes up. And these ones come up in the PDF viewer, which is really good. And you can just keep zooming in and look at the detail on those, which is great. Okay. Now, virtual reading room, that's what I was going to show you. If I just quickly jump to admin, item types, and give a request. So this is an example where we're publishing items that we wouldn't normally openly publish. So these items we've actually made non-searchable. So people will only generally find these because we've sent them a direct link. And they are also, if I just go to one that's reasonably okay. Now, if they really wanted to, yes, they could do a screen grab of each page, but there's a copyright statement very clearly. Download doesn't allow the download of the object itself, just the metadata. And as I mentioned, they're restricted searching. And we take them down within a few weeks of them being published, usually, as well. And then very quickly, other things that we've tacked on as well. So we have a Google Analytics set up for our site. So we can see, for example, how many page views last month. That was a good month, 137,000 page views. We can look at things like our demographics, and that's going to show that our age group, our most common age group, oops. Hang on, I've got to go overview. By age, 25 to 34-year-olds. And that's been consistent pretty much since we went live. And quite a surprise for us. We thought that would be one of the lower age groups for archives collections, but it's actually consistently the highest. Not that there's a lot of difference in those three, but in fact, usually all of these categories are quite close, and male and female is usually pretty closely 50-50 as well. We can also see where our users are from, which is good for our executive, that we can tell them that something like 80 or 85% of our users come from Sydney. In fact, not just Australia, but Sydney. So you can drill down and see state and city of where your users come from. And then finally, because I know we want to have time for questions, we've got a PowerBI dashboard. So this is data that's pulled out from Recollect once a week, and we can go in and say, see a whole lot of detail. So we could just very quickly go in and say, okay, I want to see all of our 16mm microfilms. What series are they in? Once I bring that up, and it's just struggling a little bit there. There it is. That's linked into Recollect. So if I go, oh yeah, I actually want to see what this letter register microfiche is about, I can click on that and it'll take me through to Recollect, which I won't do now. And we can look at items by template. We can also look at series by boxes, so we can see how many boxes. We actually have all the box types loaded into Recollect, so you can see how many type 1s, type 2s, type 3s, etc. We can do a quick overview of our collections, make sure they're balanced by format and template type. And And finally, we can do an item audit, which shows how many items have been created or edited or deleted over that period. And you might think, why would we be deleting? That's because we didn't do all of the data cleanup, and we still have some duplicates that we're cleaning up from the system as well. So that's our whirlwind tour. And I'm sorry it's so quick, but I do want to hand over to Richard to take some questions.
Thank you very much, Michael. That was fantastic. I've seen your site on many occasions, but haven't had that personal walkthrough. It was excellent to see. Thank you very much. I'm sure all of our guests also appreciated that. So just a reminder again, if anyone does have any questions, either for Jess in relation to Recollect or myself, or of course Michael, please enter it through, and we'll read through those now. So sorry, Catherine, I see that you might have had a problem loading the webinar. We have recorded this, and we will actually send out everyone who attended a link to watch a recording. Hopefully that issue resolved, but if not, you will get a recording that you'll be able to watch it again. So I've got a question here from Irene as to which file formats can we upload for the 3D viewer, and I guess Jess, I'll pose that one to yourself.
Yeah, so it's OBJ files are the core of the 3D objects, and then you can have textures on top of that.
Right,
usually JPEG.
And then from Helen, so is it possible to create a digital exhibition by using the items in the collection? And I guess, Jess, again to yourself, and Michael may have some comments on that too.
Yes, so there's the timeline feature I showed that is often used to curate that digital exhibition, as long as it's sort of in a time-based manner. But I think a few of Michael's examples were pretty good of showing how you can pull together those items to create a digital exhibition on a page.
There is an exhibition module as well, which we have acquired, but we haven't actually gone live with yet. But yeah, very excited about what that's offering. So yeah, you will see some digital exhibitions on our website soon. Yeah,
so there is, as Michael's mentioned, a exhibitions module which is just about to be released, and it does actually allow you to curate into a more of a display, almost a PowerPoint type display environment where you can click forward and click back through those images. So not yet launched, but it will be there shortly. And some thank yous there from both Helen and Irene saying thank you very much. And I think I can see Robin is typing a question there at the moment, so just wait for that to come through.
And Richard, I didn't put my email address out, but I'm happy for you to share it.
Okay.
If anybody has any specific questions as well.
Like we'll get Christine to put that in the email out when we send the recording to the link, and if people did want to get in touch with a question, they can. So a question from Robin Curry: can data in Excel format be uploaded to Recollect? Jess does this as every day, so I'll let you talk about that one.
Yes, so Excel spreadsheets, currently no, it is in the works on the roadmap for later this year to support Microsoft Office displayed natively. But at the moment, Excel spreadsheets and other non-supported file formats can be uploaded to a record as an attachment. So it won't display. You'll have to download it to view it, but you can upload it to be stored safely in Recollect.
I suspect Robin might be asking about, can you upload metadata to create new items?
Oh,
I think that's what Robin's asking.
Yes, very much so.
Yes, sorry. So yes, you can Excel format spreadsheets is how you can bulk ingest your data. So yeah, Robin said yes, metadata. Sorry for misunderstanding that. Yeah, so you can, that is how in bulk, there's no lower limit, upper limit about 10,000 of how many items in one Excel spreadsheet can be loaded in one go. Yeah.
And you can also use that functionality to update as well, which is really good. So a lot of the work our volunteers doing is enhancing the metadata for existing items, and they mostly work off spreadsheets. So then we can load that up, and then it updates those items in the system.
So the benefit there is Recollect actually allows you to extract that in that Excel format, open it up, do all the edits you want, and then reload it back on top. So
yeah.
very simplistic way to update it in bulk. All right, I think that might be it for questions. Can't see anyone else typing anything else there. Oh no, there we go, another question from David Parker. It looks very impressive, but I imagine is not suited or priced from small, low budget collections. Please comment. And I guess I can make comment to that. So there are 4 levels of subscription, starting with a professional edition, an enterprise, enterprise plus, and then Recollect, what's called Recollect Max. So the enterprise, not the enterprise, the professional edition basically starts from $750 a month so it's fully software as a service subscription. And the professional edition of Recollect effectively gives you all of the same functionality that you've seen there today. There are limitations on the amount of content that you can have in there and how content is bulk updated and ingested, or the system is in fact, once it's configured or deployed to your or customized to your requirements, it's then a fixed solution. So you can continue to add content to that. So that's the main limitation with the professional subscription, but it gives you all of that Recollect functionality that you've seen. It's not until you get into the enterprise level that you've then got full ability to edit and customize all your metadata and templates. So I guess as a starting point, there is a bottom entry level is that professional, and at $750 a month. Right. So I guess last call for questions. We've got a couple of minutes. We've done very well to make it within our 1 hour time limit. So I guess looking if nobody else has any more questions, we'll probably look to wrap up there. So I'd like to again thank you, Michael, very much for coming along and joining us today. As I said there before, it was great to have that personal tour through your Recollect site and how you've deployed it and used it. It was great to see. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
And thank you also very much to Jess and of course to Christine for helping to set up today's event. And I've got one more question. Karen, look, we've just sort of reached our time limit, but Recollect Max basically is our top-end enterprise edition. I can get in touch with you to talk through that, but it is our top-level tier where you can have your own private cloud edition, basically, so in your own private instance, and have things like your hosting fees invoiced directly and so forth. So there's a whole range of features there. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you all again very much for coming along and attending our webinar. As I say, Christine will be back out in touch with a link to a recording of today's webinar. And of course, that will also include my contact details, Jess, and we'll also put Michael's in there. We really welcome the opportunity. Our presentation today, or Jess's overview of Recollect, was a brief introduction. And if you're interested in having a look at the Recollect system in more detail, we'd be more than happy to provide a personal demonstration and focus on your collection content and how it would relate to that. So again, thank you all very much, and we hope to hear from you soon to talk with us about Recollect. Thank you all.
Thanks everyone.